Okay, so let's get started. We're going to be taking a look at understanding our source channels within the engine control module and transmission control module operation. Our source channels give us a window into what is going on inside of the internal logic and operation within either module. If we don't have source channels available to look at, we wouldn't have any idea, any conclusive idea as to what was going on with our torque control or fuel control or spark timing control. So it's super important that we understand logging our source channels and then using those to figure out how the engine control module or transmission control module is operating. We're going to take a look at two examples in our VCM scanner software so we can see what these source channels look like and why we might want to be looking at them for particular operation points as the engine is running. So first thing I want to do here is take a look at our Excel spreadsheet. This is going to be supplied in our training course folder. I have a master list compiled of all the source codes you're going to run into for the main source channels. Now, depending on your operating system, you'll find some operating systems have more available source channels than others, but we're going to be taking a look at the primary source channels that we have for most every operating system. So let's jump in and look at this real quick. What I'm going to do is just minimize my VCM editor software that's open. We're going to go into our training course folder, so HPT Gen 3 Coyote here, and then we're going to be opening up the Excel spreadsheet and providing within this folder. Now I have a couple different Excel files in here right now because I'm still developing the course, but we're going to be working with whatever the file here is that you have to open. You'll go ahead and open that. And I have it actually open here on my screen right now. You're going to be looking for in your Excel spreadsheet the tab that's labeled here source codes. Source codes is going to be these different source channels that we can take a look at that tell us exactly what's going on within the engine control module, transmission control module operation. So let's look at this real quick and understand some things. So first thing we find our torque source. This is super important anytime we're showing torque control or in a torque control situation. Our torque source is going to tell us exactly what the engine control module is doing to control the torque. We can take a look here. There's numbers. So we see 0 to 27. Before HP tuners, this is probably going back a while ago, HP tuners didn't always have the source channels listed with a name. They used to have them based on number, which is why I've created this particular spreadsheet. This is actually the way that SET also does things. They do it based on your source number, but this is the number to actual translation to what the source is doing. So for example here, if we see our torque source is showing that driver demand status, that means that we're operating in driver demand for torque control. So it's following along to our driver demand torque request table. We also see, if we kind of scoot down the list here, engine speed limit. So if we're on a rev limiter and the torque control is taking over and doing something, we may see that the torque source shows engine speed limit. So we would know that we were on some type of a limiter and the throttle body is being controlled on the limiter. So the Gen 3 applications use fuel cut and throttle control for a soft limiter feel. Looking down here a little bit further, you may find that you're in some type of a speed control. You may find that you're in some type of an idle control routine. So we see that there's a ton of different sources that are listed down here. Again, this gives us a clue into what is going on within the engine control module operation when it's controlling the engine's torque. And this is a full closed loop torque controlled system. So we definitely want to be always monitoring our torque source as one of the source channels that we are always logging. Looking down here further, we're going to find we have fuel source. This is going to be telling us what's going on within our fuel control. Now, most of the time, as you're operating on a warm engine, you'll see that it's showing here closed loop control. But we do have some other situations. Let's say for startup, you may find it shows cold startup. You may find when it's in a warm-up transition mode, so it's fired off and it's been running, but the engine's not up to operating temperature, we operate in the base fuel table. This calls out a richer command at lambda, so the engine runs a little bit richer as it's coming up to normal operating temperature. When we are at normal operating temp, again, we should see the status shows closed loop. So this tells us conclusively where our fueling command is coming from within the engine control module operation. Now we do have a whole bunch of other channels in here that we may see activated under the fuel source channel when we're logging in our VCM scanner, but these are something that's probably few and far between. So for example here, we may find that we have EGO monitor testing. I don't recall ever seeing this channel come up looking at a Gen 3. Or for example, they can look here, open loop development bypass. That is something that technically can show as a status if it's operating in that, but I haven't ever seen it. So the three primary ones that I see in the fuel source would be cold startup, base fuel, or closed loop control. Moving on here to spark source, we're going to find we have a ton of different channels here for our spark source. This tells us what the engine control module is referencing in terms of what it's calling out for spark timing. This is super important with spark timing because if we editing, let's say, our borderline table, and we're not showing our borderline as a value here, so we see that's one of our parameters here, that means it's not referencing the mapped point borderline tables. We may show that it's referencing base or MBT, maximum brake torque, so it may be riding on those tables.
Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here, and you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.